Very good. Thanks, Kristen. Okay, we will call our meeting to order for the 19th of April already. Um, and before we get started in our meeting, I would ask that we just take a moment and have a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. All right, first item on the agenda then is confirmation of the agenda. Do we have a mover and seconder to confirm the agenda as it was circulated on the weekend? Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Marshall. Any questions or anything on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? So noted, Deputy Mayor. Okay, and I assume that's to do with the one tender.
682, yeah, just in case
Yeah.
he doesn't fill line next.
And so what we'll do when we deal with the bylaws, we'll separate the bylaws out, and the one bylaw that has to deal with that tender, we'll pull it out separate, and then you don't have to vote on that one, but you can vote on the other ones, okay? All right. We do have consent agenda there. We have 12 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there that anybody would like questioned or would like pulled and dealt with separately, or just has a concern about something? Okay, I don't see any hands coming up. So if that's the case, a motion to accept the consent agenda would be in order. And moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Murray. And I did notice, I seen for Nicholas' sake, I did notice the Earth annual meeting, but there's going to be a notice come a little closer to the day and we can deal with that at that time. So it's been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. So the first item on delegations, we do have a delegation here tonight from Upper Thames Conservation Authority. And we should have Alex Shivas and Bill Mackey and Tracy and Nat. And I just have to look to see if we're on here or not. And I don't see them yet.
So Mayor Mackenzie, I'll just ask Christian to allow our guests in.
There they're coming. I see they're coming in here now. Got two. Oh, there's all three are here. Okay, very good. Okay, I'm not sure who the spokesman is going to be tonight for this delegation, whether it's Alex or whether it's Bill, or maybe it's Tracy. I'm not sure. But anyways, if you actually, if all three of you want to put your video on, there we go. And this is I guess our first opportunity to meet Tracy. So Tracy, I'm going to break protocol here. And Jeff says I like throwing people under the bus, but I'm not trying to do that. But I'll just let you introduce yourself to the rest of council here, okay?
Right, thank you, Your Worship. I thought I'd take this opportunity to join the Zoom meeting tonight. Again, just to say hi and introduce myself and hope that I'll have an opportunity to see more of you. I certainly have been at the authority for quite some time, for 24 years now, and worked quite closely with Mr. Brick for most of that time as well. So yes, your condolences are accepted. As well, I'm just here. I know Alex Shivas and Bill Mackey are never going to retire, so I shouldn't have to worry about this matter. But again, thought I'd just join to hear the discussion tonight and any comments that council may have. So with that, I'll turn things over to Alex to present.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Okay, Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mayor Mackenzie and Council, for letting us speak to you regarding Motherwell this evening. Bill Mackey, which you probably know, I'm the manager of Lands and Facilities, and Bill is the Lands and Facilities Supervisor. We're both here to answer questions. We provided a summary in advance of the meeting. I'm assuming everyone has received that. And I'll just touch base on that briefly. This is provided to everyone for their information. We're not looking for any approvals or we're not, submitting any recommendations. On the background of the information piece that we provided to you in advance, really is probably a 70-year history in about 4 paragraphs. But I think the key with that would be the last sentence of that document, which indicates that in 2018, the authority officially closed the Glengown Dam project. And the next section is the current situation. And really, I draw your attention to 2 items there. The first is that in 2020, the board of directors approved getting out of house rental or structural rental property business. And the second component of that, I draw your attention to, would be that in 2020 also, the province dictated to us what our core programs will be or will be, and house rental and structure rental is not a core business any longer. And with respect to the sections under Motherwell and the next steps, it's important to note that the board of directors has approved the demolition of the 4 structures in the community of Motherwell. And this process will start sometime this year. We haven't got a date or a time on the start of that. And staff originally were proposing to naturalize the site and sort of have a low maintenance type situation with the site. But we've also recently heard of several other suggestions from the community. And I think all the suggestions are great. And I guess we would like Mr. Mayor and council to realize that we want to work together with the community and certainly West Perth Heritage Committee, possibly Perth County, and look into all the ideas and suggestions and come up with a plan, whether it's a cairn or it's naturalization or it's a trail system, a boat launch. We're willing to work with the committees to come up with a reasonable solution. So that was the basis for the delegation tonight, and certainly Bill and I could answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Questions from council for either Bill or Alex? Anna Marie? You're muted, Anna Marie.
Sorry. One of the questions that was brought forward was the question regarding the maintenance of any future site that is there. Would that be West Perth's responsibility? Would that be the Conservation Authority's responsibility?
I can answer that. It would be Upper Thames that would look after that. Nobody's saying anything different.
Through you, Mayor McKenzie, the authority obviously has a responsibility here. And our suggestion was, naturalization, something that's low maintenance, that doesn't cost a lot of annual upkeep of the area. So we certainly have a stake in the process. But I think we all need to be careful on the road we go down to ensure there's not huge expenses for all of us in the future.
Oh, and whether down the road you decide whether it's a cairn or whether it's a plaque or some type of signage. I think I guess where I was coming from, I think it would be expected that the grass would be kind of cut around it to make it look presentable. rather than, all natural type of thing?
Yes, Mayor McKenzie, I agree with you. I think it's important to get all input, see where everybody sits, and go through a process that people can agree on, and we can report back to our board with the outcome of that and take the necessary next steps.
Okay. Councillor Marshall had his hand up, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Not so much of a question, just I did meet with some of the folks down in Motherwell at the end of last week, just in regards to with the Heritage Committee working on the Lost Villages project. Motherwell being kind of the first one we're looking at doing. Really somebody said to me at the end, it was, it's not so much about the buildings, it's about the memories there. And that's why they're concerned about having some sort of cairn or monument to go along with it to recognize the area. One of the questions, or one of the things they did ask, but I'm not sure if this is possible, is the opportunity to use some of the bricks from the existing house and blacksmith shop as part of the monument, to have that kind of continuity with what was there. So if that's possible, that would be one of the things that they had asked. Where we left it was that they will bring a proposal back to the our next Heritage Committee meeting. We can go from once they've got something there. I certainly didn't promise that there was a that what they would were asking for is what would happen, but it's a place to start, and then we can start working with Upper Thames on what we can do to make a memory of, or to make something to keep the memory of Motherwell alive for the community there.
So just to clarify, I guess, Jeff, on that, you want this information to come to the Heritage Committee, or would you not want it to go right direct to Upper Thames with their requests, and then they just keep us in the loop?
Well, this is being part of our Lost Villages project that we've started, and I think it's something that we can certainly work. We like to work with Upper Thames on, but I think this is a place to start, and we'd certainly look forward to working with Upper Thames on how we can make this happen. So
yeah, okay, no, fair enough. Any other questions for either one of the gentlemen on this? Okay, again, thank you for your presentation tonight, and certainly we look forward in the future keeping us up to speed on what's happening, and working together for the better good and cause of us all. So thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item up then brings us into reports, and the first report is the chief building official and the March permit summary. So Bob?
Thank you, Your Worship. Construction value for the month of March was just over $6.3 million. Permits are listed. 33 permits for the month and 11 zoning certificates.
Okay, questions for Bob on that? Councillor Tam?
This is probably a loaded question or an interpretation, Bob, but just in light of the announcements Friday, what's our building department's take on stuff like pools and sheds and patios or whatever stuff that might be considered whatever the word is, non-essential?
Essential. As far as our operation goes, it's business as usual. We're issuing permits, taking applications, and fielding calls, doing inspections on unfinished construction. We do not enter into residential units that are occupied. When we do meet on site, we do have in single contact with the foreman of the site, and that's maintained until we're off-site. As far as essential goes, It's not our responsibility to determine whether it's an essential project or not. That's between the enforcement officers of the province and the developer or contractor.
Okay, so further to that, I guess if somebody came in for a pool permit and need an inspection on it, then they could still obtain the permit and the inspections would be done?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I know in our business, like today I talked to probably 8 people and got 6 different answers. Some are carrying on like nothing ever happened. And apparently there's like a pool and hot tub council in London, and they were going to release some statement today just on best practices or whatever. So it's it seems to be an interpretation.
We're being consistent with the rest of our Southwestern chapter here in Ontario.
Okay, thank you.
So just further on that, Bob, then, so there has been no change in new housing builds then? They can carry on as normal?
I had a consultation with a contractor developer on Friday. As long as they've got their homes sold and contracts signed, if it's essential for the new homeowners to be moved in by a certain date because their sales are ending and they have to move into the new units in a very specific time frame, I think that could be deemed essential to their situation.
But a spec house or one
If
that
it's a spec home, it's up to the developer or contractor to just satisfy the Ministry of Labor.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Bob? Okay, anything else, Bob?
First quarter statistics are below the listed permits, Your Worship.
And I got to be honest with you. I have to ask because my computer went blank here and it's just starting to boot up again. So you carry on.
All right, thank you. First quarter comparisons between 2018, 2019, 2020, and 21. Our permit numbers are pretty much consistent for average, for over 50 for the first quarter. Residential construction is carrying most of the responsibilities. You can see by the number of residential units started in the first quarter that we're moving along pretty quickly.
I need to get it that way a bit. Any questions for Bob on that? Okay, good. Anything else, Bob?
That's everything. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Next up then is Chief Hunter, and with regards to the fire safety grant.
Perfect. Thank you. So tonight's report is in regards to the fire safety grant. Randy Pettipiece's announcement was in the consent agenda. West Perth Fire Department received $6,700, which we'll be putting towards several new training props, some training manuals, and a new training laptop. The grant will certainly help us complete some specialized training in-house. And it'll also provide our firefighters with training manuals for when they attend any of the regional training centers for courses. The OFM does require a signed agreement, which is attached, and I would try and answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Questions for Bill on with regards to the fire safety grant? Okay, I don't see any, so we need a resolution for that, I do believe. And we have one here that West Perth Council received a report entitled Fire Safety Grant dated April the 19th for information, and that West Perth Council authorized the mayor to sign the agreement on behalf of the municipality. So we have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Matheson and somebody else had their hand up. Just need a seconder here again, and Councillor Marshall. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, Bill.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next is our library report. And looking here. There we go, Rosemary. Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, take it away.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Good evening, members of council. The library board met on March 23rd and discussed the library's new website, the content, the layout, and the accessible features that have been embedded in it. And they also discussed 3 library policies. At this particular meeting, it was collections, health and safety, and the meeting space rentals. This is something that the library board is doing at each of their meetings. They'll be reviewing a handful of policies and just to see if there is anything that needs to be updated, that they still say what we want them to say. And it gives me an opportunity to present any legislative updates as well pertaining to that particular policy. So that's an ongoing thing that we will continue. And I'm happy to take any questions about the minutes.
Okay, any questions for Rosemary? Councillor Tam?
Just a question, Rosemary, on the
Yes.
repair to the van.
Yes.
Does it have insurance on it or?
It does. It has a relatively high deductible, so we did have to pay a portion. Unfortunately, the delivery van driver was in an accident several weeks ago. Our portion of that came to $6,004, and that was divvied up among the Perth County Information Network library partners. So
Okay.
our share of that is approximately 16%, and that is based on population and usage.
Oh, so we're only 16% of the 6,004?
No, 6,004 was the 16%. It was, I think the total was, it was tens of thousands of dollars. It was a very unfortunate accident. He's fine. The van was not.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a couple new vans if it's.
It's something that has to be reviewed in terms of the insurance policy on that particular van, because the deductible is extremely high. And if the driver gets into a second accident, it likely will not be worth repairing the van again. So that is something that the PCIN is having another look at to see if there is something different we can be doing.
Okay, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Wright.
So does West Perth own the van? Because it's a full-size Ford, right?
It is, I believe it's a Benz.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah, I believe so. No, we don't own the van. Stratford is the holder of the insurance policy, and the van driver reports to the North Perth CEO. But no, we do not.
The repairs were $36,000.
30. I thought it was 38, I believe. But yes, it's about that.
I won't nitpick on the 2% of the exit, but okay. Definitely somebody should look into that, and maybe you should have a cargo van, and a Mercedes-Benz is like a top of the line. I'm not sure what happened. I never heard of the guy being in an accident, but I think definitely we should look into that. If our deductible is over $36,000,
yes, it is.
Whoever's looking after the van, I think let something slip there. Whether it's, you say it's North Perth?
No,
Stratford.
the van itself is insured
Stratford.
under the Stratford, and all of their delivery vans, they have several, they have a fleet, and they are all under the same insurance with the same deductible. So that is very comparable to their other vehicles. But we are looking at whether or not one of the other communities can be insuring the van instead of Stratford, because Stratford's deductible is high.
It must almost be self-insured to have a deductible over $35,000. So
it is over that.
Other questions for Rosemary? No? Okay. You want to explain on the, I got to see what page that is.
Yes.
Page 69, the chart with all the different colors.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which chart we're looking at.
It is page 69, and it says just chart title. But then it talks about, well, it's January to December, but then it's physical 2016, physical 2017, and then digital.
Yes, those are the monthly statistics reports that are being assembled just as we go. So physical are the physical collections. So for example, the actual items that we can hold as opposed to the downloadable, for example. So the physical is anything, the books, the DVDs, things that you would tangibly hold.
Okay, thank you. So was there anybody else on here that knew that? Was I the only one that had to question that?
I'm glad you did.
Well, it was very colorful.
Yes, it is.
You can
Okay.
you can see the impact of last year's COVID-19 shutdown with
Yes.
0 in April and May physical
That's right. Yeah.
lendings.
You can, it's very striking.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, if there's no more questions for Rosemary, then we'll carry on. Thank you very much for your report. Oh, do we have a motion? For the library? Okay, I'll have a look. Normally we just do the reports at the end of the meeting, don't we? Okay. All right, I do have a motion here and I'm doing as I'm told. I don't want to get on the bad books of Leviца here. So it is that the Municipality of West Perth receives for information the report from the West Perth Public Library Board meeting held on March the 23rd. Do we have a mover and seconder to that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there is nothing for operations tonight. The next item then is recreation and the facilities manager, Darcy, and we're going to talk about a couple different things. The first is the Lions Park Playground.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. My first report is on Lions Park Playground. So the surfacing of the playground has became unusable. To a point. The roots are up. We had our 15-year inspection and it had brought a few things, but the surfacing was of great concern and the value as it shows there is about $26,000. So after talking to the Lions Club, they are doing some major repairs on the pavilion and the equipment this year. So are unable to have the funds to do it. So I'm bringing a report to council to recommend using the playground reserve as the payment. So I'll gladly take any questions.
Okay, questions for that, Deputy Mayor Wright?
Darcy, could you tell us just in my picture in my mind, is it the one at the bottom of the hill or is it at the top of the hill or which one is it?
The bottom of the hill, right below the pool, the big one there.
Okay,
like right against the
jungle
road,
gym type whole 9-yard one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? I don't see any, so I do have a motion here then that we approve the required repairs at the Lions Club Playground up to the amount of $26,000 plus HST, and that the project be funded through Playground Equipment Reserve. So a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Bell moves and Councillor Matheson second that. The inspections, Darcy, is that done by the insurance company or do we do that?
So we normally do the regular inspections. Now the 15-year one that we just got done, that was part of the Lions Club purchasing the playground, that they would come back at 15 years and inspect. So we do it throughout the year, but this was one done by the playground company themselves.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, it's a question from Councillor Marshall.
How often does staff just do inspections on these, the playgrounds, even the gazebo? I know last week we were over there with the kids playing and one of the boards had come up with the nail sticking out and was put aside, and last week and looked over and some of those were falling apart. And last fall we had similar thing with the gazebo with one of the boards pulled off. And I know these things can happen anytime, but I just wondered, are we taking a look at these pretty regularly, or?
So in the operating season, we're once a month. Now it is right now, Mike's staff, Richard's staff actually that do them. I am looking at getting that moved over to my staff. I just need to get somebody certified. And with COVID, it's been a bit of a slow process to try to get somebody certified, but we are looking at them during the operating once a month.
Any other questions? Okay, it's been duly moved and seconded. Ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the Friendship Center, report on the Friendship Center. Darcy, that's yours as well.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor McKenzie. This report is in regards to the Friendship Center. Back in my report from the February 18th on the Ontario Fire Code, we did close down due to the repairs that were going to be needed and the fact of it being low in accessibility as it is and the condition that the building is in. We have built that size of space into the new municipal office. And I think now is the right time to look at to get rid of the Friendship Center and putting the money back into the new municipal office to cover the expense of the new space there. So gladly take any questions.
So the former users of the Friendship Center will have access to the new room in the administration building when completed.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think the way that we can do it for security, it can be used at nighttime. I know the Lions Clubs are big users of the Friendship Center. I'm hoping we can have them use the new space in the community or in the new administration office.
Okay. Any other questions for Darcy on that? Okay. I have a motion here then that we direct staff to prepare options to dispose of the surplus portion of 55 Montreal Street and retain a functional public parking lot, and that the net revenue of the sale of the surplus portion of 55 Montreal Street be put toward the building of approximately 850 square feet of accessible community space in the new municipal office. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray, and seconded by Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, you have a question,
Yeah,
Nicholas? Sorry.
Yeah, please. So does that mean it's going to turn into 2 different lots then, that property?
Yeah, so we'll Jeff or I will bring a report back on exactly how we recommend getting rid of the property, but it will be more than likely a parking lot portion and a portion for sale. So we would keep the portion for downtown parking, but then sell the other lot.
Okay, good question, Nicholas. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're just in the process of a vote here, so it was moved and seconded. All those in favor of that report? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Okay, thank you, Darcy. That brings us down. Anything else? Darcy's gone. I was going to say, is there anything else, Darcy, you wanted to say at this time?
No, I don't have anything else. If anybody's got any other questions.
Question, do you have a question for Darcy, Councillor Marshall? Go ahead.
Just a quick question about the tennis courts, when we might see them operating in the spring.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for the temperature to be warm enough that we can put that final coat on. But they told me with great confidence, I could say the first week of June we'll be able to use it. We've been trying to kind of advertise with the second just to give us that buffer because you just never know with weather. But we're really looking for the first or second week of June for it to be ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Darcy. All right, and there is Terry. Next item up is the consolidated statements. So Terry, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Good evening, everyone. What you have before you is a whole lot of paper and a whole lot of numbers. But so I guess I can just maybe start just reviewing my report. So these consolidated statements are generated through the Keystone software, and Keystone is a software that is used by the municipality for their financial system. and they're used day to day by the management and the staff. And there's a lot of reports that come from this because it's a source document. It's our source software for all of our accounts payable, payroll entries get put in there, accounts receivable, cash receipts, general ledgers, and so on. So this is the information that is used by all of management, by the auditors, and by our various stakeholders. So you did see when we presented the budget, we presented it on a line by line basis. So we took every general ledger account number and gave it a budget, which is what needed to be done. So what this statement is doing, and what I'm proposing that council use ongoing for monthly, that you be given this report monthly, is a roll up of all of those numbers into a consistent format. So the report you have in front of you, I guess if we want to start with maybe the consolidated operating statements. So it's the revenue and expenditures with their budgets, and the lines, the numbers are rolled up line by line, like wages, for example. There's many wages accounts. So by department, they're all rolled up into a wages and benefit account. Operating supplies, they include your office supplies, auditing. There's a whole lot of things that are included in office supplies and expenses. Information technology, of course, all your hardware, your IT, and so on. Contracted services, that includes engineering, legal, any contracts that we have. Rents and financial admin, they include like bank charges, rents, and so on. And then there's amortization and capital and so on. These numbering schemes here kind of follow the financial information return, so that we can roll up these numbers and then we can use them in other ways for reporting to the province, to other stakeholders, and so on. So so these reports, they have integrity in them, in that it's all the actual data coming from your Keystone software, from the Keystone software. It's not Excel spreadsheets that are made up, which is room for error. Yes, there may be some accounts that are in the wrong budget line, but we are going to try and make these as informative and as factual as possible, because we want to have our managers meet with a member of the financial department at least 3 or 4 times a year and review each of their line by line departments. Take a look at where things have been posted in the general ledger, and if there's any variances or things in the wrong spot, like maybe we have a contracted service within a telephone, just a funny way that sometimes, mistakes happen, it gets posted in the wrong thing. But to make those changes and fix that, so that when budget time comes, you are looking at really good data for making decisions. Management does and council does. So, so that's kind of what this is for. So so what I did was I took the budget from the line by line that was given to you in your council binders in Excel, and it was uploaded into Keystone on that line by line basis. And then all of those numbers I took and created this report and rolled it into groups and segments. So let's see, I'm kind of going all over the place on my report here, but so let me see. So what you'll see is the budget. The report that you're getting right now is the March report, and then in April, you'll get an April report. And so what the 2021 budget to date right now is at 3/12. So you take the total budget divided by 12 times 3, that's what it is. So your 2021 year to date should almost be around that time. And then you also have the 2020 budget to date and the 2020 year to date, so that you can look at it, some year to year variances on that. And I did speak in my report about seasonal expenditures, like for example, the parks. You're not going to see any wages really in the parks department right now, because of course, January, February, March, they're not in there. They're not at the parks. But it's not, it takes a lot of resources and a lot of time to load the budget in on a monthly basis, line by line. And it's just, the cost benefits of it are just not there. We know that there's never going to be wages in the parks in the first 3 months. So it's easy to see what those variances are, and they're going to be the same variances year over year. So that's why it's nice to see that report showing you last March versus this March. And so we can spot the variances a lot easier. Another thing about the integrity of this report is, as a treasurer, I take the report and I look at the balance sheet and I look at the operating statement to date, and I double check that those numbers are correct and that we balance. So the total of the operating revenue over expenditures should match whatever your surplus deficit is at the time in your balance sheet. So that's just another look at the integrity and of the report. Let me see. So we talked about them being driven month by month. You'll see that next month, you'll get it in April, the 4/12 of it. The report's broken down by group headings. So again, that's how we budgeted too: council, general government, fire, roads, and so on. And all of these again are how we report on the FIR, and how you'll see how the auditors even reported by segment and by function in their financial statements. We can change these statements if council so choose. I did break out one expense, and I noted in the report of general insurance. Sometimes councils, it's a big ticket item, so you might want to see how it impacts each of the departments. You might want to decide to see what's our legal by department. So we could break that out in a separate line also. So once council get used to seeing these reports and maybe get understanding them more and see the variances, you might want to say, hey, maybe we want to see something else in the report, or work with it for a little bit and we can make some changes to it. So to help make things a little bit easier, I hope I did, I had Monique help me with this, and we marked up the reports you have for this month. This won't happen again every month, but just to show you that it's called an income statement. The title of the one is the 2021 general operating statement. And then we have the utilities one, which is the user rate. So we keep it separate because this general operating one rolls up, and I ensure that the bottom line on the 2021 budget says 0, because the taxation revenue, if you see on your very first page, is the actual levy that we are requisitioning, or that we are levy requirements for the tax rate. So that all has to balance. I use this report also, I used it to help with the budget. And so, and that also kind of brings me to that one sheet that you have in there is what I'm proposing, the format, very similar, but using for your budget report. That's to go on the website. So it's a similar format broken out by the group headings and so on, but the columns are different. So instead the columns, the title of the report would say 2021 general budget or utilities budget. The columns would be the past couple of years year-to-dates, and then the 2021 budget, or I guess the 3 year-to-dates, 19, and then the 20, and then the 20 budget and the 21 budget. So it was really useful and helpful for us. So you can see the variances, plus you can also do some budgeting based on 3-year averages or so on. It kind of helps. So that's what I'm proposing, just strictly for the budget report. Similar format, but broken down by month for your ongoing reporting for council. Let me see. You also got the balance sheet report again. We're working on looking at what makes up all the amounts in the balance sheet and balancing those two, and maybe eliminating some of them, consolidating some of them. That's an ongoing project. Let me see. The managers did review this. I brought these forward to the managers a couple of times, and they've looked at them, and so that they can speak to these. If there's any big variances within this report, they should be able to speak to them, and maybe they can put them in their report or bring it up. I usually go through the report and look at variances all the time. I try and see what, why is that variance there? What does this mean? And so on, so that I can also bring it up to the managers, or if council have any questions about any of the variances within the report. So it's called Consolidated Operating Statement, and I'm hoping if council would like to have this kind of format, that we provide it to you on a monthly basis. So it's ongoing actual data from the general ledger with the financial system, and it's timely and it's consistent reporting format. So I'm a lot of information right now, but hoping you'll get used to this and used to this format and be able to read it. But if you have any questions on it, I know it's a lot.
Okay, questions for Terry? I'm just looking for somebody that'll stump you.
Oh, and they probably will. If you can.
I gotta say, you love numbers, don't you, Terry?
I
do. Nicholas has a question, I think.
In the income statement summary type reports, is it possible that the budget to date columns be a percentage? Then in my brain would work. It's much easier to look down the column and look for variance in a percentage instead of having to look back to the numbers all of the time. And then if Keystone could do the work for us, highlight the too high or too low variance that I don't have to use my brain, that it's highlighted already, the variant, and then much easier to say, okay, if it's 150% out, turn it to bold and yellow or something like that. If that would be even easier for me to look down the report after that.
Yeah, I get that.
And then lastly, my brain.
I will have to double
go ahead.
check with Keystone.
Yeah.
And then I would have to double check with Keystone on that. Sure. And it's a pretty user-friendly system, but it's cheap. it's a lot cheaper than a lot of the other bigger systems out there. So it is actually, yeah. I'm sorry, Councillor.
That's okay. The first column that I would like to look at is the 2021 column, not the 2020. So it's just me nitpicking, but beside the words, I would like 2021 rather than have to go all the way across. Then you need to have it printed out in a ruler and lined up all the way across, where if 2021 is the first columns to look at, then it's easier for me to line up. But those were just my suggestions.
That's totally
the percentage fine. And then flip them around. Yeah.
So is it hard, Terry,
we can work on that?
Yeah, is it hard to move the columns around?
No, that's not that. No, and I'd have to fit a percentage. So I got to make sure I can fit all of this in this 8.5 by 11 sheet too on a landscape. But no, it's not hard. So your suggestion with your request is 2021 year to date, 2021 budget to date, 2021 budget, 2020 year to date, 2020. Yeah, so you want the budget in the middle?
Yeah. Or budget first, and then year to date second would be my preference, but that's only my preference. And then instead of numbers in the budget to date, it could be percentages. We don't have to have both, because if we have the percent, well then we can see whether it's a variant or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could get rid of those.
Yeah, we can. I'm almost positive it can do percentages. Yeah, this is great, because you know what, we can take a look at this and look at it for a couple of months and go, maybe we can, let's look at it this way, or maybe, there's ways to look at this for sure. Yeah, great. No, that's all good. So we'll take a look at that for you for sure. I'm not sure about the highlighting. I'll have to look at that one. See if they can do that kind of thing, but yeah.
Any other questions for our interim treasurer? A lot of work there, Terry. We can see that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to create it,
yes.
But there's checks and balances within it. So if the GL account isn't being used, it stands out and won't let you save a report or print it or anything. It's quite good that way. But now that it's made, and it's a lot easier to do. I just have a couple of updates also. Mayor McKenzie, just to say that the FIR has been submitted for 2019. Another lot of Thank you to the financial staff, Monique and Lori, and oh my goodness, it's been quite a thing, and our auditors. So it's been submitted, and it was submitted on Friday, no, last Wednesday, I think. So, and then also we're working with Infrastructure Ontario on the loan applications because they require both the financial statements and the FIR. And they do require a whole lot of information on COVID and so on. So Monique, our financial analyst, has got that almost complete. So that's going to be coming to council too soon. So happy to say that. A lot of work, but it's coming together.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Any other questions from council or comments? I would
Well,
take a positive comment if you have any.
Oh.
Nicholas?
So I was wondering about the balance sheet then and all of the information there. How would we put that to good use? Rather, if it could be summarized, that would make it easier for me to read than just having every GL balance ending at the end. That doesn't help so much, I don't think.
No,
so I don't think we need to see that. Yeah.
No, and I get that. I wanted also for you to see it because I needed to show that the integrity of the operating statements and the balance sheet and so on. I just wanted to put all these together for you. I get that this is your balance sheet should be like 3 pages, if that. It needs to be worked on. And that is in the process. But I can't speak to these numbers because I don't know them enough. So that's a project on the go for sure. And the TCAs have to be capitalized and so on. So there's a bit of work yet to be done.
Councillor Trinkowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm relieved to hear, Terry, that the 2019 FIR submission's been completed, and I'm relieved to hear that you and your staff are getting some control on the different files. What's the schedule then for the 2020 FIR reporting submission? When good news, bad news, you've got one done. When do we start the party again on the next one?
Well, we're working on, so we're trying to get the COVID stuff done. I'm working with Lori in the tax department. I'm trying to just write her some GLs for taxes so that they can balance the taxes. So the new general ledger system is kind of on hold right at the moment. We're adding some GLs to the old system just to make life easier for balancing going forward. This balance sheet has to be really looked at and reviewed. And for the audit, there should be a binder with each separate account in it. Well, there's a little too many accounts here. Some of them can be consolidated, and we need to know what every penny means within them. So that has to happen for the audit. I think we're well on our way and fine with the operating side of it, the expenses and revenue and so on. I think those are pretty good. We've closed a lot of the reports. I think mostly all of the 2020 information is in now. We do have to make the entries to bring in the revenue from our COVID funding for the once we get that finalized. There's still a lot of work to do to get 2021. We're working on it. I'm not sure I can give you a timeline right now.
I think that's yep. So I was just going to say, Dean, I think that's a fair enough statement. I think she's doing a tremendous job there, and certainly from what we've seen tonight, I think we appreciate what you've been doing. If there's no further questions, I do have a motion here that we receive the West Perth consolidated statements and that Council of the Municipality of West Perth approve the new report format for the consolidated budget and ongoing monthly operating statements with adjustments to be made as required for future reporting. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Timkowski and Councillor Vink. Any questions? All those in favor? Or do you have a question, Doug? Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Good
Awesome.
work,
Thank
Terry.
you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on then. There is nothing from the clerk's department tonight. From the CAO, we have some tender results, so I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. We have a couple of reports to cover. First of all, the report that we have in the package is, dealing with the tender results from the HOP drain is before you. I'll just highlight that the project came in at $50,810 plus HT. It was under budget. We opened the tenders on April 7th. We broadcast the tender results to our YouTube channel as per our standard practice, and we are recommending that Council of Municipality West Perth award the construction of HOP Drain 2020 to Horsk Excavating Inc. in the amount of $50,810 plus HST.
Okay, Jeff just read the recommendation there, and that we award the construction of the HOP drain to Horst Excavating in the amount of $50,810 plus HST. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Matheson, and a seconder, Councillor Murray. Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. I'll move on to the next, which is the tender results for the rental of the agreement for the hayfield. I note that our Deputy Mayor Ait has turned off his camera and recused himself from the meeting for this part of the conversation. The tender results are provided to you in a report outlining that we received 2 tenders. The high tender, or the highest price tender, was $2,700. And so we certainly, it was complete, and have every reason to expect they could follow through with the tender. So the staff recommendation is that we select that high bidder and award the contract. The one little thing I want to note that wasn't in the report, and frankly, I never thought of it until Friday afternoon later on, was that when we issued this tender, we issued it for 24 acres rather than the 29 acres. So we held the 5 acres back because we were looking for some other options, which we discussed at our last meeting in closed session. And I just want to mention to council that at this point in time, we would probably want to see the hay removed from the other 5 acres, just given the plan for the site. And I would recommend that we change the recommendation to say, if I just quickly do the math, it's $112.50 per acre is the price that the tender came back at when you do it by acre. If we extend that to the other 5 acres, it would add $562.50 to it, which would make a total tender price of $3,262.50 plus HST for the 29 acres. And I would ask that council approve the recommendation with the $3,262.50 amount for the full 29 acres. And I spoke to the successful tender today, or the high tender today, and he indicated that he would take the additional land.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff on that? Okay, I have the motion here, and I'll just read it once more. Jeff has gone through it, but that we award the rental of 29 acres of municipally owned agricultural land described as part of Lot 22 Concession 1, former Fullerton Township, located north of Frank Street, to the highest bid submission from Saddle Up Stables in the amount of $3,262.50 plus HST. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Marshall. Just a question, Jeff. Is there HST on that, on the land rental?
Yes, we
There
do.
is?
We do have HST on it, and the contract indicates that the price that they're offering is a bulk price plus HST.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if there was HST on land rental or not. Okay, so it's been duly moved and seconded. Any other questions? Okay, ready for the vote? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie. My third report is a report providing background information on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan project. It's actually an interim report or an interim update about the project. I was provided the report template by the co-managers for the project with the City of Stratford. We were actively involved in this project, and our clerk had put quite a bit of work into this project to get it to this point. There's a good letter from the project co-chairs outlining the status of the project. There's a good executive summary, and there's a good frequently asked questions section, which would give council a lot of information at this point in time. The important thing to note is that this our requirement to prepare this report is a direct response to a change in legislation, and while there's been a slight extension to the date to get the report in, it's something that we want to proceed to get finished and get filed as it's part of our new legislative requirement. So I can do my best to answer your questions, any questions that weren't answered in the attachments. And then I will commit to you that I will be bringing back the final plan and details about implementation as we develop them.
Okay, questions for Jeff? Deputy Mayor Ide?
The priority area number 2, affordable, attainable, and suitable housing. If this was already in here, why did we make a new committee to work on this if it's already in this plan? Ending homelessness, this is our mandate, almost word for word of what our new Walter, CHHA, community, and here we are duplicating it. I'm just not sure why we weren't, I don't know how to say that. We didn't know that yous were already doing this, and now we've got a committee at county that's doing the exact same thing.
So two elements of the response. Number one, the county wasn't a partner in the community safety and wellbeing plan because the local municipalities, or the lower tier municipalities in the county, and the City of Stratford and St. Mary's were the partners. So the county administration wouldn't have been aware of this recommendation because they weren't participating. So that explains why there was that disconnect. Although I believe the two measures they roll right together. I think that they wouldn't be done as discrete overlapping measures. I think they would travel together. So the committee that the county has set up would be the way to advance priority area number 2.
Other questions for Jeff? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, I have a motion here then that Municipality of West Perth received the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan interim report for information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose and Councillor Harold. Last call. Any questions? All those in favor then? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie. And I'm on to the last of the reports I want to give you that I have written reports. I do have a couple of verbal updates I'll provide after we handle this report, sort of as a bit of an activity update because things are moving quickly. But let's cover this report first on the Mitchell Reservoir operations for 2021. I'm not certain if councillors were receiving requests. We were certainly receiving inquiries at the municipality, and we know that the Conservation Authority was receiving requests. And I think a bit of that is explained, as I noted in the report, that we're having a very early spring. And any of you who have been on the land or pay attention to the land and the Farmer's Almanac, this is quite a bit earlier this year. And obviously that got people interested in whether or not we would be proceeding to put the reservoir in. I can only confirm for you that on the basis of the past data that it very routinely the reservoir was raised at the last week of April or the first week of May. Sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later, depending on the seasonal conditions. The Mitchell Dam is always a week or two behind the Orr Dam in Stratford, simply because of the different nature of the watersheds and the ability to fill them, and the way that the Conservation Authority manages them. And so we are a little ahead of schedule. There was, as outlined in the report, the unintended consequence of having the reservoir down for 2 years to aid in the construction of the Henry Street Bridge was a much higher than expected amount of vegetation growth. I'm confident that the vegetation that's growing in that reservoir is largely dried out and it doesn't have a lot of available carbon in it. And we're hopeful that when we flood the reservoir, that we won't see a lot of decay, but there will be some. And the consequence of that may be that if we have a very hot summer with low flow conditions and not a lot of turnover of reservoir water, we could get into a situation that the decomposition becomes bad enough that we may have to drain the reservoir. So the position that we're in currently is the Conservation Authority worked with us on a decision that we felt we had no other choice but to fill the reservoir to arrest any further growth of vegetation now. And we certainly don't want to have any green growth occur in the short term. And we advanced this a little quicker than our normal filling schedule. And then we're going to work over the next few weeks on a very detailed monitoring plan to monitor conditions. Again, hoping that we're being overly cautious and won't have to operate the reservoir. And finally, once we have a threshold established and we're monitoring, we want to have a communications plan in place in the event that we did have to drain the reservoir, that we've communicated to the public about what to expect if that occurs. So this is what I would call the ultimate in adaptive management. I think I have some experience with reservoir management from my past work experience, but I've not seen the amount of extraordinary vegetation growth that occurred in this reservoir in my past operations. So this one, I think, warrants some close monitoring.
Question from Councillor Murray.
Is it filling now? Have you closed it?
Yes.
Closed the dam?
Yes, and we closed the dam starting last week, and I want to give you an update as of today. We have, as of this morning, we have 2 gates closed, and the 3rd gate's closed down to 2 inches. So the way that we fill the reservoir is they're lift gates. So you close them to cut off flow to bring the water levels up. And it's a bit of a tricky reservoir because to get it filled, you need quite a bit of runoff. You can't cut off downstream flow, but you have to have enough runoff that you can bring the reservoir up and get it to the point that it goes over the bull nose and you have overflow from the top, and then you can close the gates. And it's a combination of art and science to get that right flow and to watch it close enough when we close the gates. And so we began operations last week. We would have reached a point where the amount of head on the water was causing the outflow to equal the inflow, and it wouldn't come up any further. And that's why this morning we closed it down to 2 inches. We will get a response in the reservoir. It'll start coming up. The Conservation Authority's estimate is that we need 6 or 8 millimeters of runoff. So we need about somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of an inch of runoff in order to runoff, not rainfall, but runoff, in order to get enough water to fill the reservoir, get the gates closed, and then use it as an overflow structure.
Councillor Tam.
What would the thoughts be on ever planning for or budgeting, like to dredge that? But I grew up near there, and it used to be a big basin, but now it's almost a sandbar in the middle.
Yeah. So it's a very, very good question, because I think that this experience kind of leads you to the conclusion about we should have a look at what we could ever do with the sediment there. I can say from, again, my past experience, and it was actually Ore Dam in Stratford, we explored a project in earnest when I was with my previous employer to look at dredging Ore Dam. We collected monitoring samples of the soil and found that there were a lot of hydrocarbons in the sediments, which were fine if they were in situ. So in other words, if you left them where they were fine. But if you moved them, they met the threshold of having to go to a contaminated landfill. So the cost became, well, it became prohibitive at that point in time. So I suspect you could have the same kind of sediment material, and we're going to have to talk to the Conservation Authority about that. But the key message there is that it's an interesting thing to explore, although you want to make sure that we know what the material is, because it could be something that you very quickly decide it's better to just leave the sediment in place.
Okay, Nicholas.
Does a fountain in the reservoir play a role in vegetative decomposition and water quality, one way or the other?
Very good question, and it's a question that a few folks have pointed out to us in the last week or two. Because if you're worried about water quality, can you compensate with some aeration with the fountain? And yes, the fountain will help, and it'll help for a you know, in our experience, the aeration will help with a defined area, but it's actually a very small area. So if you were going to sort of have an effective aeration for the whole reservoir, you would require probably dozens of fountains. Frankly, it would be quite an extensive aeration scheme. And those surface fountains are good for looks, but they're not the best for aeration. So you'd have something like more like a lake lung kind of system, which would give you a better impact across the reservoir, but a very, very expensive option. And so with this organic material, we're just hopeful that the combination of dissolved oxygen and temperature will be suitable for fish life, and we won't have to bring it down, and we just get through a couple of years of monitoring it and then go back to normal operations. And on the topic of the fountain, there's been some questions raised about should we reestablish the fountain, and we've got a service club interested in reestablishing the fountain. And I think you can all imagine that it would be very nice to get a look at that fountain from the new Henry Street Bridge as a very nice amenity. I think this year we want to hold off because the cost to install it and then possibly have to bring the reservoir down. So I think we want to get a little more information and perhaps not explore it this year, but I do think we want to reestablish fountain operations in future years.
Okay, any other questions? A lot of information there. Okay, I have a motion here then that Municipality of West Perth received the Mitchell Reservoir Operations 2021 report for information. Moved by Councillor Marshall. We have a seconder for that, Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Good. Okay, now, did I miss any reports in getting a motion, Labitza? Okay, so I have a motion here, and I'm looking for direction that council accepts the reports from staff and councillors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed. We still do that, do we?
Yeah.
Don't we have some more committee?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I flipped the wrong page over. Sorry.
Yeah, and if I may, Mayor Mackenzie, just before we move on to the next, I'd just like to provide a couple of verbal updates on for council's benefit and to state them in the public record. I've actually emailed council on these, but I think they're important things to lay down in the council video and in the council record. And I want to mention that the manager of legislative services clerk position posting is up, and so is the manager of finance, treasurer position posting up. Those position postings close on May the 3rd, and we will be intending to move as quickly as we can after we receive the closings to arrange interviews and get on with filling those positions. And we have the executive committee identified an interview team for the treasurer position, and I would anticipate we'd use the same interview team for both senior leadership positions. Secondly, I want to mention that the electric vehicle charging station at the southwest corner of Ontario Road and St. David Street has been completed. It's been commissioned, so it's now operational, and there's more work to do there in terms of putting in a sign. The municipality will have to pass a parking bylaw that those spaces are restricted to the use for electric vehicles that are charging. But I wanted to mention to council that for now, Erie Thames our Earth Power Corporation, I want to get the name right, Nicholas. I'm working on changing my lexicon. So Earth Power is doing a soft launch. So the station is available for use. It's amazing how quickly electric vehicles find it. And I believe it was Deputy Mayor Ite that pointed out to me that there was a car using it. And I'm aware of that one for sure within a couple of days. And so that station is up. The more formal launch will come towards the end of May, at which point in time Erie Thames will begin charging. And I think it's a great, asset for the downtown and its proximity to a lot of amenities in our community that people could be coming through town, charge in that location and go and explore the downtown, or take a walk over to the arena or Veterans Park or one of our other parks, or the Ball Diamonds, and pay about $1.50 to $3 per charge roughly to get a charge in that location. And then I want to quickly mention that in terms of municipal services, we of course had additional announcements on Friday afternoon, which were a bit frustrating because there were expectations for implement.
Oh, what happened?
We lost Jeff, but we can still see you, Walter.
Okay, and I'm coming through, okay?
Yes, you
You're
are.
good.
Okay, so Jeff just cut out.
And he's still out.
He's frozen.
Oh, you're frozen, Jeff.
He's back again.
Yep,
That's
you're
a bad
back.
shot of his stomach.
You're froze with your middle of your stomach in the screen. There we go.
And am I back?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. So I have no idea. Oh no, municipal services. So we had announcements on Friday afternoon of changes, and I think we're all doing our best to respond to provincial announcements. And I think we respect that the province is trying its best to adapt to this very complex situation as quickly as they can, and then expecting others to adapt in line with the province's new measures. We did not close playgrounds on Friday, mainly because of logistics, but as you would all know from following the media coverage over the weekend, that decision was reversed. And we will probably work on some signage about reminding people about being responsible for making good decisions themselves, and reminding people that we are in COVID, and while touch points don't appear to be as risky as air, there is still a risk of transmission, and just reminding about good hygiene and asking people to be careful and physically distance. So we will be reviewing that over the next few days and figuring out how to adapt, and just seeing where the changes in the regulations land and stay. And as far as the rest of our operations, the memo that we issued last week remains valid. You heard from Chief Building Official McLean earlier tonight that he's been checking into it with other building departments and the OBIA. Is it the Ontario Building Officials? I can't recall. I think that's the right acronym, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and interpreting the same way, because it's we don't all have a department of lawyers that can help us with interpreting what these changes in regulation mean. And we're trying to also do service. So please bear with us. We think that there isn't a lot of change as a result of the most recent changes, and we will be working with the office to again go through and do another level of taking a look at who can work from home and function, and how we can rotate and try to set a good example for our community.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff at this time? Okay. Moving on then to correspondence, we have a letter from the Perth County Federation of Agriculture. And if my memory serves me right, we wanted to refer this to Mike, I think, to deal with. I think all the operations managers were working on a response to this one.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to presuppose council's choice of what to do. I think the letter is there, a logical choice. I think there's a couple of logical choices. You could receive and file it, or you could refer it to staff for a comment. So we would, I guess, look for council's direction.
Comment from anybody? Councillor Matheson? Refer it to Mike to deal with?
Yeah, I was just going to say refer to Mike to deal with. And I think there's another section too about the grants. I'm not sure that Mike would be the staff person for that section, the last paragraph, if there's somebody else that would look into that.
we can word it that we just say that staff
refer to staff
and they can deal with it, and whatever department can answer it best is be the department that would handle it. So do you want to move that then, Councillor Matheson? Okay, do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Bell? Okay, any discussion on that letter? Okay, so the motion is that we refer it to staff at this time to deal with. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Okay, good. Next up then is Councillor Jankowski, and we have the Alma Logan Recreation Complex financial. I think this is the first report we've had from them for quite a while, isn't it, Dean?
Well, it is. We haven't had a meeting as a committee since the fall, so it would appear to me these numbers have been laid out by North Perth. They haven't been reviewed by the committee, to my knowledge, Your Worship. So in any event, there's lots of expenses and little to no revenue, if any, for obvious reasons. So until society can function more freely, that trend will continue for the near future, unfortunately.
So is there anything there that you want to draw our attention to or highlight at all?
No, nothing specifically other than until we get some users, we won't have any revenue. So
right. Okay. So do you want a motion to accept that, Labitza, or do we just cover it with the other motion that we're going to do now? Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, the next item up then is Asabo Bayfield Conservation Authority, and it is a meeting that happened just this past week. So, Mike, you want to report on anything there?
Yep, I wasn't able to make that meeting, but as you can see, there was a hearing before the meeting. There's been a lot of things along the shoreline, and we're having a special meeting April 29th for 2 more hearings. So other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. And the minutes of the March meeting are there. And I'd also just like to say that we usually just get the agenda and the minutes from the previous meeting in our package, and this now we have the whole meeting. So he can see everything we see. And if it was your wishes, we could do it as a link, like what Upper Thames does. I could request that they do that instead of sending all the pages.
What's your wishes? Do you want it to come as a link, or do you want it as we have been getting it? Any preference?
Yeah, like usually we just get the minutes and the agenda, just those pages for Sauble Bayfield, but this is the whole report. This is everything that we get.
Yeah.
We can, it's nice to see that, but we can do it as a link too, because sometimes it's lengthy.
That's where we got it, was the website. Lapizza
Okay.
said we downloaded it off the website, so that's where it came from.
Okay.
So if I may, then I think that I really like the idea of the links, and then the hot link, if it's incorporated right into the PDF. And I know we used to do this with the Upper Thames ones, and then we went to the link. So I think great idea. Let's move to the link.
We'll do the link.
And I think it's just as efficient for councillors to move to the link when you're going through preparing for your agenda. If you want to go deeply into it, you can.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right.
Do you want me to communicate that to Brian, or do you want to Jeff?
No, you know what? It's just a matter of the way we show it. So we can grab,
Okay.
It's just as easy for us to grab the link, and
Yep.
what adding the link is giving a little more information than we used to, but not going all the way. So it's perfect, I think.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, the next on the agenda is the BIA, and Councillor Bell is chair of that, and we have, I guess, two groups of minutes there, February 3rd and March the 3rd. So Sherry, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, there's nothing much to add. Normally March is our AGM, but we had it in April this year. Unless there's any questions, it's all pretty straightforward.
Any questions for Councillor Bell? Okay, seeing none. Next one is Environment, Forestry and Trails Committee, and Councillor Marshall is chair of that. Jeff, I'll let you highlight anything there you want. Actually,
Thank you.
two minutes there.
Just really kind of two different reports. I got other minutes and another report. So
right.
Excuse me. As you see there, the minutes are from the fall. The one, lots of information on some signage that we were looking to do. We had a presentation regarding some pollinator habitats in the at the wetlands, so that we're being. I'm not sure if they were able to get them in this weekend, but they're going in around this time if we can get some worked up a little bit. Invasive species is always a big issue for the committee. The Healthy Forest campaign, I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Things are going pretty well at the wetlands and the trails. We did have a suggestion about doing a launch for the new trail on the west side of the river by the bridge there. Hoping to do something this spring. Unfortunately, with these new restrictions, we won't be doing a formal opening of it. I did meet with Andy Bader from the paper this week to do a kind of a soft launch. There'll be a story and some pictures in there, and hopefully we'll be doing some social media to support that. So coming this week. But I think generally from walking through there, I think most of the folks in the town are very aware of the new trail that kind of connects that loop around through both sides of the river. So I think that's pretty well it for that for the minutes of that meeting. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Jeff? I think you're good.
Then I'll move on to our Healthy Forest program. And I certainly want to give full credit to our subcommittee chair, Hannah Kahn. She's done a terrific job with this. What this is a program to subsidize tree planting in West Perth. It came up last in the fall and was put into our budget $1,000 to work with the two conservation authorities to subsidize new trees being planted in our community. You can take a look. We've had a number of 1,200 trees, over 1,200 trees through the Sable Bayfield Conservation Authority, and 165 through Upper Thames. The Upper Thames one were large stock. So those were on 9 residents. So there's more demand out there. People wanting to do more. We just run out of budget on that. So we'll see. One of the things I want to point out is that if these trees make it to 25 years, they'll have sequestered over almost 260,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide, helping to reduce the climate change and improve air quality across West Perth. Most of these were being used as windbreaks along boundary lines, some infill around properties, and afforestation for wildlife, the ecosystem. It's been a terrific program. Hannah has done a great job for us on this, and we're looking forward to this going forward with this as we go into the future. Interesting enough, coming out of this, we've also approached Earth to be a partner in this program with us, and they have shown interest in this. So we'll be continuing some discussions, and hopefully we'll be able to get some contribution from them, and perhaps even do some fall planting with their donations. So and we'll certainly be giving them credit as part of our partners on our social media and any media we get from the program. So I'm happy to answer any questions on it if you have any.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay, I think it looks good, Jeff. Oh, question from Mr. Brick.
Actually, I just want to add to Jeff's report and say, yeah, really good report from Hannah, and the committee, I think, deserves a lot of credit for taking that on. And I want to just mention that I want to give a very quick update on the Rural Roots Initiative, just because it came in this morning, and I ran into Tony Jackson yesterday, and I think I maybe got volunteered to help plant trees. I wish I would have not gone for the walk I went for yesterday, because it's going to lead to a sore back eventually. However, Tony Jackson provided us an update this morning, identifying a number of locations that Rural Roots is looking at. It was a good opportunity to get an update from Tony on, they believe they've got their stock secured. They have their locations marked, and I'll work with Mike to check these locations. So they've got their tree planting for Rural Roots. This roadside tree planting this year is primarily in Fullerton and Logan, with one site in Hibbert. So we have that. We'll get a more thorough report from Rural Roots later, but I just thought it would be a good opportunity to pop that little update in, that we've got that project underway as well.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Okay, anything else? All right, then we do have a motion here that I wanted to do earlier, that the Municipality of West Perth accepts the reports from staff and councillors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Murray, Councillor Matheson, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, it brings us down to the bylaws, and we're going to split the bylaws out so that Deputy Mayor Ait can participate in the ones that he doesn't have a conflict on. So the first group of bylaws, and I'll read it off here, that we give first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 26, 27, 28, 29, 31, and 32. This 19th day of April, and the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign and affix the corporate seal. So we're omitting bylaw number 30, which is the one to deal with the rent. And bylaw, just for your information, bylaw 26 is the B and F of the Miller Drainage Works. 27 is the A and B of the Parsons Drain. 28 is the Burns drain. 29 is the agreement for the fire safety grant. And 31 is the collection on the Kistner municipal drain. And then 32, we have it in there. Yes, 32 is the collection on the Brown municipal drain. So the motion then is, as I read, and did we get a mover and seconder for that? Nope, we still need a mover and seconder for those bylaws. Councillor Rose and Deputy Mayor Wright. Okay, any questions on any of those bylaws? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And then we'll deal with the bylaw number 30 separately. So the motion is that the municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw number 30 this 19th day of April, and the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign the same and affix the corporate seal. So we need a mover and seconder for that bylaw. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Harold. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Okay. Moving on then, announcements there. Next regular meeting would be May the 3rd. Any notices of motion? Councillor Marshall.
Yes, it's my intention to bring forward at the next meeting a motion to request that the province rescind or stop.
I think he froze.
Jeff disappeared.
Yep, he froze up on us. We'll just wait a second.
I'll just mention that Councillor Marshall spoke to me about this today, and so under the procedural bylaw, we wouldn't have debate about the motion if we can get that, and he couldn't have done it because the announcements were made Friday afternoon, and there's Councillor Marshall coming back. So
he's back.
You see me now?
Yep, we'll get you to redo it. You froze up just as you got in.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Good. Go ahead.
Sir, it's my intention to bring forward a motion calling on the province to rescind their extraordinary policing measures in regards to this emergency, in regards to the emergency order. That's what I will be bringing forward at the next meeting, if assuming it's still applicable.
Yeah. And so I was just going to add procedurally that we will put this on the agenda. I'll work with Councillor Marshall to determine the language of the motion, and then it will be posted with the minute or the agenda for the next meeting. And for any councillors, just as far as how that works, if you and Councillor Marshall couldn't do this time because the announcement wasn't made until Friday and the agenda was already gone. But if you get it into us in time for the agenda deadline, we could consider it on the same night as we could consider it in that first meeting. So that's just per the procedural bylaw.
Okay, so noted. Okay, is there any other business at this time? Okay, I don't see any. So we do have a confirmatory bylaw, and it's a bylaw, get my right page here. Bylaw number 33, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Municipality of West Perth be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. And do I have mover and seconder? I'm going to look at Councillor Trinkowski because I don't think I've got a motion from him tonight. So would you like to move that, Dean?
I will, your worship, this will be my second motion.
Oh, did you move one? I missed that one then. Okay, so moved by Dean. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tam. Okay, all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And then finally, a motion to adjourn at 8:41. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.